ITSM Academy, here we believe that one of our important roles in the industry is to help organizations get buy-in for their IT service management programs. To assist you in your efforts, we offer this webinar and many of our previous webinars to your organization in a virtual environment at no charge to you for a group of 4 or more participants. There's no selling involved. It's just our way of reaching out to the community to help organizations with their IT service management programs. So if you're interested in having us deliver this webinar for your group, please just email us at info at itsmacademy.com. Today we're pleased to have Donna Knapp, ITSM Academy's Curriculum Development Manager, with us. Donna's presentation is titled The Future of the Service Desk. During the presentation, the information that Donna presents may raise some questions, or you may be looking for some additional clarification or information. We've scheduled Donna's time at the end of today's session to answer your questions. So to submit questions, just use the chat window that appears on the GoToMeeting box, which is located in the upper right corner of your screen. Open your chat window by clicking on the plus sign next to the word chat. Just type your question in the chat log section and click the send button. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. We've got a large number of attendees for this session, and Donna has a lot to cover. We'll answer as many questions as possible today. If we're unable to respond to each of you today, don't worry, we'll compile all of your questions and answers in a Q&A report and send you a link by email to download the report in just a few days. Donna has a couple of polling questions that she'd like to share with you so that she can get a better sense of today's audience.
Karen, I'm going to do the polling questions along the way, so not yet.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. Now, for those of you who are new to ITSM Academy, here's a quick overview. ITSM Academy is a full-service provider of IT service management education. We have trained tens of thousands of students on-site across the Americas and in our public training centers in Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Reston, Salt Lake City, and Tampa, as well as in our virtual classrooms. Now let's introduce today's speaker, Donna Knapp. Donna has over 25 years of experience in the IT industry, working as a practitioner, consultant, and trainer. She is currently working with ITSM Academy as Curriculum Development Manager, developing course materials and training programs. Donna is an ITIL expert, a certified process design engineer, a certified ISO 20000 consultant manager, a certified Scrum Master, and she is certified in knowledge-centered support principles. Donna has developed a number of highly successful service desk-related seminars, including ITIL at the Service Desk and Customer Service Excellence for the Service Desk Professional. She is the author of 2 college textbooks, one titled A Guide to Service Desk Concepts in its 4th edition, and another titled A Guide to Customer Service Skills for Service Desk Professionals in its 3rd edition, with the 4th edition coming out in 2013. Donna has also authored the ITSM Process Design Guide, Developing, Reengineering, and Improving IT Service Management, which serves as the foundation of our popular CPDE course. Good morning, Donna.
Hello, thank you, and hello to everyone else out there as well. Thanks so much for joining us today. As Karen said, I have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna go ahead and rock and roll here. So first of all, let me give you a little brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. In order to talk about the future of the service desk, we have to take a little bit of a snapshot of the current state. We won't spend a lot of time there. And we're also going to talk about some trends that are influencing where we are heading. And then we're going to talk about where we're heading. And there's a lot of debate going on in the industry right now. You might have seen some of the intentionally provocative headlines that are out there that, the service desk is dead and, the end of the service desk is near. And in all honesty, if you actually read those articles, they talk about the fact that the role of the service desk as we know it today has got to change going forward. And so what I'm going to talk about is the different ways in which the service desk needs to change and give you a little bit of a checklist for building your roadmap for taking you into the future. And because I'm an educator, I will spend a little bit of time talking about how to develop a training curriculum that's going to support you in those efforts. So first of all, let's talk about where we are. Now, I recognize the fact that within your organizations, you may have multiple support entities. So for some of you, you may have see all of the above when we talk about these concepts of help desk and service desk and business productivity team. Historically, the help desk has been a very reactive organization, very technology-oriented, and very much focused on break-fix type activities, focused on incident management type activities. In the last, I would say 10 years or so, we've seen the advent of the service desk brought on really by ITIL, and ITIL best practice really speaks to the fact that the service desk should really be viewed as more of a proactive role and have a broader scope of responsibility. So I would say the service desk is a help desk with a broader scope of responsibility.
Yeah, mine are charged, and I'm not using it.
I'm going to please. So, thank you. So again, let me just repeat. The help desk, or a service desk, excuse me, is really a help desk with a broader scope of responsibility. So the service desk often handles not only incidents, but service requests, and gets much more involved in answering how-to type questions, enabling self-help, enabling and supporting self-service type activities, and also, and here where very much the proactive part starts to come into play, involved in processes like problem management and change management that really enable the service desk to prepare for what types of changes are affecting the environment or proactively trying to prevent incidents from affecting the environment. And we're starting to see the introduction of the business productivity team concept. Now, the business productivity team, it really just speaks to exactly what the concept is. It is an organization that is focused on improving user productivity and facilitating business outcomes. Very much an organization that is dedicated to helping people within an organization leverage information technology by enabling self-sufficiency, number one, and also by serving as a trusted advisor. So rather than simply being, again, on that kind of reactive end of things and, waiting for people to call in and ask questions, they're out there saying, hey, did you know that you would be able to do your work more efficiently and effectively if you leveraged a particular technology that we have available in our service catalog? We also see the business productivity team taking on a little bit of what I'm going to call a services broker role. Now, what I mean by that is think about a lot of your organizations today. Increasingly, we have applications that are being sent to the cloud. Some of those applications you're hosting internally. Some of them are being hosted by external suppliers. We absolutely don't want to go back to the old days where, and some of you are all out there probably as old as me, and so you can remember having multiple sticky notes all over your desk, right? It's call here for PC support, and call here for mainframe support, and call here if you have a question about the telephone. We can't go back to those days. So really serving as that services broker to make sure we understand what services are available, how do customers gain access to those services, how do they gain support for those services, and perhaps even facilitating that support along the way. So it's much more of a proactive role, and it's much more of a strategic role in that, again, it's very, very much focused on business outcomes and enabling those business outcomes. Now, I kind of said, for a lot of you, you may have all of the above in your organization. You may have multiple help desks that are dedicated to particular apps, for example, and all they do is provide application support for a certain set of applications. You may have a central service desk that is serving as that kind of single place of contact within the organization for most support type of incidents or problems. And you may have business productivity teams, whether you call them or not. You may call them specialty teams within the service desk who are dedicated to particular business units within the organization. Or perhaps you have staff who are embedded in different business units and who are serving as dedicated support for those particular business units. And again, their role is to enable that productivity. So I'm going to, I just want to take a little reading. So I'm going to launch a little bit of a poll, And I'd like you to tell me where you see yourself on this spectrum. And in this particular case, you actually can pick multiple options. So if you have a little bit of, if you do in fact have different examples of these organizations in place, please let me know that. So I'm glad to see them evening out a little bit. It was interesting. The first folks out of the gate pressed reactive service desk, so I was seeing 100% reactive there for a second. But now we're starting to see more and more organizations that are, in these different stages of life cycle maturity or service desk maturity. So I'm going to give y'all just a second more. I'm not really seeing the numbers shift that much anymore at this point. So let me tell you what you all are saying. 18%, it just changed. 19% have a reactive help desk. 59% reactive service desk. So you have a little broader scope of responsibility, but you still tend to have those reactive processes. 37% proactive service desk. 6% have business productivity teams, and I think that's awesome. Again, I don't care what you call them, but you understand the spirit of what those organizations are. And 18% of you have said we have all of the above. And that 18% number is actually higher than I thought it was going to be. So that's a very interesting number. Awesome. Thank you so much. So where is your organization? Nice. Somewhere on this maturity spectrum, what's influencing the need for your organization to change? Now, I'm not going to talk about all these trends because for most of your organizations, you're living through these trends. So you know what it looks like. You know how these trends are affecting your organizations. I do kind of want to speak to a couple of them. BYO, notice I don't have BYOD because it's no longer just bring your own device. It's bring your own device, bring your own application. And increasingly, we're going to see build your own. I'm sure you all have seen these news reports of these young kids who are building their own apps and selling them for millions of dollars, right? So the future is really going to be more and more that we're going to see organizations building their own apps, and perhaps just business units within an organization building their apps, just like we're seeing today, business units within organizations, standing up cloud-based services with a corporate credit card. And that's really what shadow IT means, down at the bottom of the list. If you're not familiar with that term, it just kind of says, folks are doing this stuff. People are bringing their own device to work, whether that has been authorized by the IT organization or not. And again, organizations are standing up, cloud-based services using their corporate credit card and going to, a company such as Rackspace in order to just kind of get it done on a day-to-day basis. So really, what's it all mean? What it all means is that you have more contacts, and according to HDI, 66% of their members are seeing an increase in the number of tickets that are being reported to their service desks. Now, the ones that aren't seeing an increase, you'll see efforts to implement problem management, for example, or knowledge management. But what do we know when we implement problem management and knowledge management? We may not have more contacts, but what we actually have are more difficult contacts, right? Problem management's doing a great job of eliminating the really easy incidents. What you're left with are those really complex and really difficult to handle incidents. So increased complexity in our environment and increased expectations on the part of our customers. Just think about how you use technology today. We all just want it to work. We want it to work regardless of where we are or what device we're using on any given day. More and more and more, we're passing data back and forth between our laptops and our iPads and our phones, right? And we want all this stuff to work. And part of what makes it really difficult for the service desk is that there's real business impact when things go wrong now. We don't even have the manual processes in place in a lot of cases anymore. So really there is no fallback to paper, which is what we had for a long time. There's just, I can't get my job done. So there's a far greater sense of urgency on the part of our customers when things go wrong and when they're looking for a solution. They kind of don't want to hear that I need to escalate this to second line support and I'll get back to you with an answer. So I'd actually like to launch another poll very quickly just to speak to this notion of what makes this so difficult. And I've given you a couple of options, and I want you to tell me, what other things you're finding. One of the things I hear a lot is we're just being asked to make it work. So yeah, our company has implemented a BYOD policy, but we're not getting any new people, or we're not necessarily getting new processes in place. Lots of tools without the rules, right? The technology's out in front of us. The technology's been deployed. We don't have the policies. We don't have the processes in place that we need in order to really successfully support this technology. Look at mobile computing as an example. A lot of organizations just don't have the processes in place to deal with how to get replacement devices to people if they need to, or how to, even ensure that they can remotely interface with folks who are on the road. Service desk isn't engaged early enough. Boy, isn't that an age-old issue, right? We just, I have no doubt that somebody out there, like this week, had a call come into the service desk and something got changed over the weekend and nobody bothered to tell the service desk about it. So let's get the service desk involved all the way back in service strategy, all the way back in service design, so that they're better able to prepare for and kind of be in front of these trends as opposed to behind these trends. So I see some others out there, so let me see what the other folks are having to say. So we're seeing I'm sorry, I've got a lot. Self-help, self-service, lack of upper management buy-in and support. Gosh, isn't that age old as well? I should have added that to the list. It's almost too obvious. Going through some certification and trying to get those processes in place and getting the buy-in for our new processes. And an excellent challenge that someone mentioned is just not having the customer buy-in and not having the customers maybe be willing to contact the service desk in the event that something goes wrong.
Hi guys, it's Lisa Schwartz. It looks like we're having a little problem that we need to escalate to the service desk and that we've lost Donna's audio, but they are feverishly working on it. And Karen's back in, so I'm sure Donna is soon to follow. Apologize for the disruption, and if she's not back in just 1 minute, we will apply our best idle skills and go with a workaround. Jane Grohl, get ready. And this is when we really need music in the background. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be much more pleasant? I mean, I'm not going to sing or anything, I promise.
Lisa?
Yes, ma'am.
I could tell them about next month's webinar while we're waiting.
That's an excellent idea. Thank you, Karen.
How about that? We'll tell them about that. So I would like to remind you that our next webinar is Thursday, November 21st. Again, that will be at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. And our speaker will be Pam Erskine, and she's the principal consultant with Advanced Operational Performance Techniques, aka ADOPT. Pam's presentation is titled ITSM Adoption, the Ingredients of Success for Organizational Change. And in this webinar, Pam is going to discuss how service management is performed by people supported by processes and technology. While we can use the ITIL framework for the processes and we can use various IT service management tools as the technology, we still need to support people as they adapt to the changes required for success. And why is this so difficult? And why doesn't everyone just follow the process? Well, in this presentation, we're going to examine organizational change as it relates to IT service management. So join us as we talk about simple ingredients for improving acceptance and reducing your frustration. So we're really looking forward to having Pam with us next month.
And Karen, you can tell we've got a great audience of service desk professionals because the responses are, yes, start singing, Lisa. It depends on the music. Only if we can pick the music. Trust me, you do not want me to start singing, and if I did, it would be Toby Keith. Jane does have the presentation, and if Donna is unable to come back in just 1 minute, we're going to switch over to Jane. Apologize for the interruption.
And it's Jane, and I'm like the first runner-up, so give me a couple of minutes to just get myself in order, and if need be, I'll jump right in.
Elias wants to know if the service desk of the future can solve this. Eric would like for me to sing Hall & Oates. Pat would like for me to sing Anything But Willie. Oh, before it happens. That's a very good point. Yes, the service desk of the future should solve this before it happens. Ken would like for me to rap, which I only know one rap song, and it's really not appropriate. Elvis I can do. Judy's got a good point. We could just talk about real-life experiences, sing, 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 like the canaries that we are. So I'm not seeing, Jane, that Donna's coming back, so I'm going to, are you ready for me to make you the presenter? And thank you. If you're first runner-up, I'll miss, okay. I'm Miss Congeniality then, if Jane's first runner-up. Well, let me talk about, and I'm sorry to do this because, typically we don't sell it all on our webinars, but let me just take this as an opportunity to say we do have corporate on-site workshops that are very specific to customer service and service desk skills. So if you're interested, they're 4-hour and 8-hour options. So if you're interested in learning more about any of those, which are both fantastic, jam-packed, filled with take-home workshops. So feel free to send an email at info@itsmacademy.com, and we can get you more information about our service desk specific offerings. And then, of course, the IDLE classes, certification classes, the OSA class, which is service desk, and a lot more, operational support and analysis. The next is currently on our early bird, which means there's a 20% discount, and that class is in the virtual classroom. So that's kind of new. We've just moved our capability courses into the virtual classroom, and the date on the next OSA is November 4th. And then, of course, there's the service operation life cycle class, also in the virtual classroom. I believe that one's also an early bird, and that is January 13th. And one of the two of those early birds has not moved over yet, but if you're interested and you want to register, just go ahead and register for the early bird that's currently available, and say, but I really want to come to the November 11th class, and we'll make that happen. We've had a rare string of technical difficulties this morning, so those dates are not ready for us yet.
But I'm ready for you now.
Yay. And Pat did confirm that the SO, Service Operation class, is on early bird for January 13th, and we're moving over the OSA early bird to the 11-4 class. So. Jane, if you take it away, I'll make sure that magic happens in the background.
Okay, so hang on for a second. Let me take the presenter.
And thank you, Jane.
My pleasure.
I would like to just point out that Jane, she doesn't need to see a presentation, and this is case in point because I believe she's never seen this presentation before, and watch her hit it out of the ballpark. Go, Jane, go.
Well, thanks. And again, with all due respect to Donna, I have not seen the presentation before, so Donna, if you're listening, I will try to do my best to bring it to life. For those of you, though, who are going to be in Nashville, do take the opportunity to see Donna present this presentation live, because there's so much more behind it that I'm likely going to be able to give you, but I'll do my best. So I think where Donna left off is she was talking about trends that are starting to influence the future of the service desk. And, you know, as most of you know, Donna has a very long history with the service desk, but so do I. And, you know, I started service desk management a long time ago, and just kind of watching how a service desk has evolved is really interesting. But more importantly, I think what's particularly interesting is what we support. So if you look at the columns on the left and you look at what Donna was explaining is bring your own fill in the blank, you know, being able to support a cloud where you don't have control of the infrastructure, mobile support, I mean, Lord knows that's interesting. And all of these other items, the service desk now needs to be more than just a support mechanism. They really need to know enough about all of these things to be able to provide that level of support. So what does that mean? That means everything's going to get much more complex. The expectations of the user is still going to be, you know, always available, always free, you know, instant support. They are starting to get used to self-help, and so certainly that's helped to offload some of what's happening in the service desk, but there's also an expectation that any channel, any time of day, any device, any app will always be available. So there's going to be a real business impact when things go wrong. Do I hear Donna?
Yeah, and I honestly didn't realize that I had dropped off, and my apology for that. I see I dropped off way further back than I thought I did.
Okay,
Did
well,
you all have the poll?
What?
Did you all have the poll?
No. I just actually picked up your presentation where you are. See, in the Service Desk of the Future, you have a holographic presenter in the event of technical issues. So do you want to continue on from here, Donna? You want me to continue for a little bit? What do you want to do?
Thank you. I'll continue. And again, I apologize. I didn't realize I had dropped off. I was chatting merrily away to myself. So I just want to confirm that you all did not see the poll. At what point did you lose me?
Pretty much here. Next slide, I think it was.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we're ready for you to share the poll results.
Okay. So if you did not hear me, 32% we're going to make it work. 18% lots of tools without the rules. 27% service desk isn't engaged early enough. And 50%, no surprise there, all of the above. And 5% of you put in other, and you had lots of great things to say, like, you know, you don't have the governance in place, or you have customers who are starting to, who maybe aren't receptive to contacting the service desk. And we'll actually talk a little bit about peer-to-peer support coming up momentarily. So I'm going to kind of proceed forward quickly. I realized I lost a little bit of time. So on to the future. You know, increasingly we see within organizations a real commitment to lifelong learning and providing people the education they need to understand what the goals are of their organization. But we also need to have role-based training, and we need that training when we need it, just-in-time training. So how are we going to get that training? In some organizations, we are seeing the introduction of an enterprise Genius Bar. Now, you may be familiar with the Genius Bar concept because you've perhaps walked into your local Apple store, and the idea is that I can go in and I can get one-on-one support, and I can really better understand how to better use my technology. Maybe I can get help resolving an incident. But a lot of it is about enabling productivity and really kind of better understanding how to leverage technology. Now, what does this different model for delivering training and support mean? It also means that we're going to have to look at our reward system. So we may find that we need to put in place reputation-based rewards. You know, some of you may have tried in the past implementing a knowledge management system, and you, for example, paid people based on the number of articles that they submitted to the knowledge management system. And a lot of you probably found that that just doesn't work. And one of the reasons why it doesn't work is because it's kind of garbage in, garbage out in its absolute purest form. Sure, people will write lots of articles, but they're not necessarily articles that are usable, and they're not necessarily articles that are going to be able to help people solve their problems. So more and more we're seeing where it is the folks who really contribute knowledge that is usable. You know, if you look at an article and that article was written by John, for example, do you trust that that's going to be a helpful article? Because he has proven that he puts in good stuff. I was actually standing, I mentioned, in the Apple Bar and Jeans Bar, and I was fascinated that people were coming in and asking for Mary or John, and those individuals have a reputation for being the people that helped in the past. So more and more we're going to see that reputation-based reward. And we've already been seeing the concept that if you aren't willing to share your knowledge in today's organization, you're not going to be as valued as someone who is willing to do that. So that's the people aspect of things. Let's talk about the processes for a moment. We need to put in place more agile practices. I always say if your processes are bureaucratic, it's because you made them that way. If you look at frameworks like ITIL, there's all kinds of guidance in terms of how to ensure that your processes are scalable, that they appropriately reflect the risk profile of your particular organization, and that we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach with our processes. That's why people hate change management so much, because a lot of times organizations treat all changes the same instead of recognizing that some changes can be made, can come in this morning and be made this afternoon, and some changes need months and months of planning in order to be implemented. We also have to look at seamless integration of those processes. The real value in processes come when you really understand their relationship. Incident management will never be as efficient and effective as it could possibly be until you have in place a good problem management process or a good change management process or service asset and configuration management. And that seamless integration really lends itself then, of course, to the technology that underpins those processes as well. So where are we heading with the technology? Well, we are already seeing the future here. Self-service portals, service desk applications. More and more we're going to see lifelike avatars. We're seeing avatars today, but as we move into the future, we're going to see that it's going to be like talking, to a person. Now, let's all remember what's really important about all of this technology. There have to be people on the back end that are populating these knowledge management systems, that are ensuring that there are appropriate escalation paths in place so that if someone logs an incident on their own, it is going to get correctly routed to the right point of contact. But more and more and more, we're going to see where users are reporting incidents or logging incidents on their own via something like a self-service portal or a self-help portal, and then we're routing that to the appropriate level of support that's needed within the organization. So the service desk isn't necessarily going to have to play that first point of contact role. The technology will be the first point of contact, and the service desk is going to be involved in those more complex, those more difficult to handle incidents or service requests. One of the other things that has to be considered is that peer-to-peer support is increasing. You look at younger people, they are much more apt to just kind of either Google for an answer, or they'll, send a text out to their friends and say, hey, has anybody ever had this? So communities are important, but we have to be intelligent about this because we can all spend a lot of wasted time in communities, and I'm sure some of you may have experienced this. It's actually one of my personal pet peeves. So you have something wrong with your computer, you Google it, you find lots of different forums where people are saying, yeah, that happened to me too, I have had that same problem, but nowhere in there is an answer. It's just a lot of people talking about how they've had it too. Where is the support organization there, or where is the company there? Someone from the company needs to be monitoring that community and stepping in and saying, hey, I'm from the service desk, let me tell you how to deal with that. Or, hey, I'm from the service desk, let me send you a knowledge article that will help you in order to resolve this particular issue. Otherwise, we're just losing time, right? It's wasted time, it's wasted effort, and it's certainly going to impact productivity. So social media listening is something that a lot of service desks haven't yet found their way to, but need to, and very, very quickly. A social media listening program, and I'm not talking about a social media program here, I'm talking about a social media listening program, says let's make sure that we're listening to what our customers are saying about our organization and taking action. So it's not enough just to kind of sit in the background and listen, but let's make sure that we are, in fact, taking action. A friend of mine was telling me a story that the day that somebody tweeted about the fact that the system has been down for hours and when are they ever going to get the system back up and running, and they didn't even know that the system was down, right? That's when he realized that he had to get into the practice of social media listening. So we need to understand that in this day and age, people aren't even going to hesitate to tweet something. We have to be out there picking up those tweets and taking action on those tweets. Increasingly, younger people think that the way to report an incident is actually to tweet about it. So we have to be, again, out there listening and out there taking action on what folks are saying via social media. And always the bottom line here is that we have to demonstrate value to the business. Now, notice that I don't say value for the money. And I'm not saying money's not important and it's not something that we need to think about, but when you start talking about value for the money, you make it about the money. So let's stay focused on the business and the business outcomes and what the business is trying to accomplish, and make sure everybody understands that. When you make it about the money, the inclination is let's reduce what it costs. And sometimes what we have to think about doing is optimize the cost, not necessarily always and only reduce the cost. So herein lies the great debate. What role will people play in the future? And I'm going to do a quick poll and just see what you all have to say about that. So what role will people play in the future of the service desk, given what we've talked about up until now? And for those of you who kind of see that what people option, there is part of the great debate is that technology is going to take over and we won't need human beings anymore. And it makes me happy that none of you are, you all have picked up on my little joke there and nobody's picked it yet. But very interesting, I'm seeing a real strong balance, and I did let you pick multiple options here because I do think that the service desk is going to play multiple hats. So we're seeing lots of folks who are kind of picking, again, the see all of the above type of option. There's a what people. Somebody weighed in and picked what people. So I'm going to just give it a couple more seconds. Somebody has to be on the back end of that technology, and somewhere we see all these other roles. Notice that I put highly skilled analysts there, because again, I think we've got to move away from this reactive help desk where, there are still a lot of service desks out there where the biggest percentage of their contact volume is password resets. Technology can handle that very, very nicely today, and I know that for a lot of you, you're waiting to retire some legacy systems so that you can get out of that business. So one more moment. We're starting to see knowledge contributors and publishers really pull into the lead here, 72%. And I understand that being viewed as a really critical role. Again, somebody has to populate all those self-help systems and be involved in ensuring that those self-service systems are viable. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and let you all see 53% advisors or counselors, which I think is really exciting. I mean, it kind of takes IT people back to where we are in the lead and we are the experts. And let me talk to you about how we can leverage this technology. 64% highly skilled analysts, right? Because again, as your problem management processes mature, as your change management processes get better, the incidents that do happen, I always call them big, fat, hairy, ugly incidents, right? So they're going to be way more complex, and we're going to need highly skilled analysts to deal with those. And that notion of service brokers, people really who understand the service catalog and who really can assist customers in understanding what services are available and how can they utilize those services. What processes will be critical? Well, we're talking about the service desk here. So our bread and butter processes like incident management, request fulfillment, knowledge management, service catalog management, service level management, that's not going to change. Those are going to continue to be critical processes. From the proactive standpoint, event management, problem management plays such a critical role because they really, again, enable us to be more proactive, to get out in front of incidents. Change, release and deployment management, service asset and configuration management. You know, something that's a little bit misunderstood about release and deployment management, for example, is that it actually has, and part of this is because incident and problem are in the service operation book in ITIL, and release and deployment management and change management are in the service transition book in ITIL. But they have a very, very strong relationship. And ITIL actually advocates having your incident and problem management processes engaged during service validation and testing activities, during your release and deployment pilots, right? So well before we've actually done a full deployment of technology, we've got our production, incident management, problem management, maybe even request fulfillment processes engaged so that we can be testing those processes as well, so that we can be capturing known errors, so that we can be starting to investigate problems, so that we can bring all of those disciplines to play even when we're in the service transition stage of the life cycle. A couple of processes that don't get talked about in the service desk, in the context of the service desk very often, are supplier management. If we're going to be a services broker in the future, then we have to be involved in that supplier management process and know who those suppliers are. And also, even earlier in the life cycle in service strategy, the service desk has a strong, or will have a strong relationship going forward with the business relationship management process and also the demand management process. If you're not familiar with demand management, what its job is to strategically understand what the demand will be from the business. It also needs to understand things like user profiles. So understanding that you have some folks who work in your corporate office, for example, and they use certain types of technology. You have road warriors who use another type of technology. You have executives who use yet another type of technology. And determining what are the best offerings for those individuals. So again, in the spirit of being proactive and also in the spirit of being more strategic and really enable or, helping folks figure out how to leverage technology, we'll see the service desk of the future getting involved in those processes much earlier in the life cycle. I talked about the role that technology will play, and again, a lot of this is about, using innovation, ensuring integration. Remember that part of what an integrated tool suite does is enable you to integrate your processes. So it's not about the technology. It's about passing the data and information back and forth that you need, or enabling you to aggregate the data and information in a way that's useful. And speaking of data and information, what's going to be critical? Well, the answer is whatever is important to the business, whatever will demonstrate value to the business. So we'll talk about that more as we go along. So where does your organization need to be? You have to look at the needs of your organization. You have to look at what you're capable of. But I'd like to encourage you all, just wherever you are, if you're reactive today, look at how you can be more proactive. If you are proactive today, but you're maybe not involved in strategic activities, look at, is there a business relationship management process in your organization? Is there a demand management process? How can you get engaged in service design? How can you get engaged in those activities that are happening earlier in the service life cycle? So a few things to keep in mind. If you're looking to move to a strategic service desk, what are the characteristics? The service desk will always be about high-quality service at an optimum cost. So you really have to look at your organization and fund what your business needs, focusing on user productivity and self-sufficiency. And I like to emphasize the fact that user productivity doesn't mean just fix incidents faster and get them back up and running more quickly. Let's get on the front end of that. Let's get on the proactive end of that and help them understand how to better leverage technology, how to, be that trusted advisor so that we don't have folks out there who are struggling to get their job day in and day out and the technology is really getting in their way. How can we help them utilize technology to get on with whatever is their role within the organization? And looking at and having in place forward-looking policies. Now, the way to have forward-looking policies in place is to be involved in service strategy and to be involved in service design, so that as you see an organization starting to think about a BYO program or starting to think about deploying more and more people into, home-based offices, whatever is, the culture change, and a lot of these technological issues do translate into culture change. Look at putting the policies in place early on, and even if you have policies that are viewed as living documents that you're going to continue to fine-tune and refine as you go along, put some stakes in the ground to get some basic policies in place. Predict contacts, and that, a lot of that, again, comes from demand management. A big part of what demand management helps you do is understand strategically what I'm going to use my idle vocabulary here, all of you that have taken your idle, what our patterns of business activity are going to be going forward, and those patterns of business activity are going to translate into contacts at the service desk. So let's get on the front end of understanding that so that we can staff up accordingly, and maybe we don't need more people, we need different skill sets. Let's understand what we need to put in place. Maybe we need different technologies in place. Perhaps we're deploying a lot of folks to home-based offices, or we're going to have a lot more mobile workers, and so we need more remote control technologies, right? So that we can start to not only predict those contents, but we can begin preparing for those contacts, and also starting to look at ways to just proactively prevent those incidents and problems from ever actually occurring. Drive customer satisfaction with all of IT, and we understand this. For a lot of you, the only IT people that customers actually interface with are the service desk. So it drives me insane when the service desk is kind of low man on the totem pole in terms of getting resources. I don't think everybody really appreciates what an impact that has on your ability to satisfy your customers. And also, let's make sure that we're focusing on delivering value to the business. So a little bit of a checklist. When it comes to the people, meet people where they are. And what I mean by that is if they're on social media, get on social media. If they're mobile, get mobile, right? Get out there and be able to use remote technology, control technology to be able to interface with them if they're sitting in an airport. But meet them where they are. And meet them where they are in terms of skill sets as well. We have 4 generations of people in the workforce, which is really interesting, right? We have everything from seniors like my mom who want step by step by step how to do things. And then we have younger people who could take this technology apart and put it together again without batting an eye. So we can't, and someone actually recently said to me, my customers would never use self-help. Well, some of your customers might not like to use self-help, but believe me, a lot of your customers are willing to use self-help and expect you to have self-help and really don't want to have to get on the phone and talk to you. Deliver a positive customer experience, and one of the things I encourage all of you to do is walk a mile in the shoes of your customer. What does your IVR feel like, right? How difficult is it to get through to the service desk? What does your self-help look like, right? How hard is it for people to log incidents on their own or get a status of their incidents? Really walk a mile in your customer's shoes and understand what that experience looks like. Some organizations put in place technology and it starts to be perceived as a barrier to the organization as opposed to an enabler. And always don't forget employee satisfaction. There are a lot of studies that have been done that show that the higher your employee satisfaction, the higher your customer sat. In terms of processes, utilize frameworks and standards like ITIL, like knowledge-centered support, like the HDI standards, like ISO 20000. Leverage them, and leverage them in an agile way. if you write down nothing else from this conference, please, or from this webinar, please write down 2 words, just enough. What is just enough process in order to satisfy our regulatory controls or ensure that things are secure? Just enough, right? And get good at knowledge management. Knowledge Center support really looks at knowledge management in a very, very different way. So if you're not familiar with it, that's maybe something you can give yourself as a little homework assignment to look into. And I've already talked about this notion of focusing in on the interfaces. No one process in and of itself will ever be efficient and effective until we get the process interfaces in place. Technology, get good at social, innovate with technology, integrate with technology. It's really a fun time from a technology standpoint. Just, you know, watch that it's not a barrier. Watch that it's not getting in the way of your customers actually getting the assistance that they need. And from an information standpoint, make sure that you understand the metrics life cycle. And I'd like to give a specific example of what I mean by that. You know, if you've put in place a good problem management process and you're starting to reduce the number of incidents that are occurring within your organization, for the service desk, one of the things that you're going to see is that your first contact resolution is going to start going down. And if you're not thinking about that, and if you're not managing expectations appropriately of the fact that actually now first contact resolution going down is a good thing, or it's an okay thing at a minimum, then you need to know that you're going to demoralize the staff of your service desk because they're going to try month in and month out to hit their target, and they're maybe not going to make it. And they're not going to make it by design, right? We've put processes in place that are designed to lower first contact resolution, as an example. You also are going to run the risk that your customers and your management team perceive that the service desk doesn't do a good job. So understand the beauty of process interfaces is they enable processes to work more efficiently and effectively, but you also have to understand that if you improve one process, it almost invariably will mess with the metrics in some other process. And you need to think about that, and you need to start managing expectations appropriately. Don't wait to be asked, and what I mean by that, and some of you who've heard me speak before know that I like to say all roads lead to incident management. I believe that the service desk has a wealth of information available to it that it doesn't share enough. Get out there, make sure that all of the business units within the organization understand what kind of incidents are affecting their productivity, what kind of service requests are coming. Help them understand, you know, sometimes the business units may really not realize the impact that incidents are having on productivity. And you might have just given them that little bit more that they need to build a business case for replacing that technology. Maybe they've been using some legacy technology, and you can help them to quantify what the impact is of using that technology. And I'm talking about a negative impact of this case. So take all that, you know, beautiful information that you have and get out there and ask the business, what would you like to know? What would you like to understand about, you know, the contacts that we're getting at the service desk and the incidents that are affecting your part of the organization. And always, and I've mentioned this a couple of times now, demonstrate value to the business. Now, demonstrating value to the business is easier said than done, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through this list, but I do want you to kind of look at this list and think, what's missing from this list? And, you know, what's missing from this list is a lot of traditional service desk metrics, like average speed of answer and average handle time, right? And the reason they're not on this list is the business doesn't really care. Will customer satisfaction survey if your average speed of answer is inadequate or if your average handle time is inadequate? Absolutely. But those are leading indicators, right? So we have to look at what the lagging indicators are, and those lagging indicators are those things that really enable us to achieve outcomes, right? They enable us to achieve results, and they enable us to really understand how efficient and effective our other processes are. So focus on those things that enable you to deliver or get better, let me say it this way, get better at articulating value to the business. Now, I understand today it's really difficult to demonstrate that you're increasing user productivity. And again, the way we often try to do it is by saying, well, we reduce the number of incidents. So by being involved earlier in the service life cycle, you can start to get good at saying, you know what, we were involved in implementing, a knowledge base that provided procedures and, checklists that enabled customers to not have to contact the service desk, and therefore they were able to process more loans this month than they had been able to process in the past month. So tie it to a business outcome in some way, shape, or form, rather than simply speaking to, right, how many incidents or how many service requests, because again, the business doesn't really care about that. So what should our training curriculum look like? Well, we talked about value to the business. So one of the things that we have to incorporate into our training curriculum are business skills. How do we introduce to our staff what's going on within our business, what our different business units do? I used to be a service desk manager, and we actually used to bring in representatives from the
Oops, it looks like we've just lost Donna again. You guys, I'm so sorry for the internet issues. I'm feeling like retrograde's coming along strong for us. Jane, are you ready to pinch hit again?
She's back. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks, Donna.
This time I actually happened to notice my phone dropping, so I think I caught it pretty quickly. Thank you. Bring folks in from the business and let them talk to the service desk about what they do and how they are impacted when they can't do what they need to do. Technical skills, soft skills, self-management skills, we understand those things. They're kind of mainstay skills in the service desk, but let's not forget them. I call an awful lot of technical support organizations that still say to me things like, we don't support that, or I can't help you with that. And that just tells me that they haven't gotten the customer service training that they need in order to communicate with me in a positive way. And remember that in this day and age, we really want to be thinking about blended learning strategy. Does some training occur in the formal classroom? Absolutely, and it always will be. Some is going to be self-paced. Some is going to be social, right? We're going to gain it. We're going to gain knowledge by getting out into communities and by talking to other people and learning from other people. And some of it's just going to be good old-fashioned on the job. But more and more, you want to look for those opportunities to use education to enable collaboration. So if you're pulling together a team, maybe start off by giving that team a little bit of education on what the project is and what the goals of the project are and maybe what the best practices are related to that process. So everybody's kind of on the same page from an education standpoint, and then go forth with your team activities. So my parting words, and I've kind of made all of these points, the future is really now. So for some of your organizations, I hope that I've validated that you're doing the right things and maybe giving you a couple of little tips and tricks that you can use going forward. Get clear on what you can do. I want to emphasize there's always something you can do. So even if you don't support a product, or if you have a policy in place against something, say that in a positive way. What I can do according to our policy is this. What I can do is put you in place with the organization that supports this. Use those frameworks and standards to benchmark your services, just enough, think agile, and lead with great customer service. I had the opportunity to see Malcolm Fry speak recently, who's kind of a recognized expert in this area. And one of the points he made that I thought was awesome was that a lot of times great customer service comes after failure. The system crashed or something went wrong, and we all kind of rise to the challenge and we do a great job, and in the end our customer's satisfied and we all pat ourselves on the back and we go on our way. Well, that's awesome, and we do need to do that, but let's lead with great customer service. Let's make sure that all of the mechanisms, all of the channels that folks are using to contact the service make it easy to do business with us, that meet our customers where they are and enable them to get service in whatever way they want to get service, and do so with an appropriate sense of urgency, right? Let's understand when customers contact the service desk, especially in this day and age that more and more, they may in fact be out of business, right? They may in fact be unable to do their job. So lead with great customer service. So, questions? Or I think Lisa or Chantel, I'm handing over to one of you.
Well, thank you, Don. First of all, we have lots of great feedback here. I mean, it's a great presentation, so thank you so much. Lots of food for thought there. I wanted to just remind people it's just noontime now, so for those people that do need to leave us at noon, just again a reminder that our next webinar is Thursday, November 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and our speaker will be Pam Erskine, who's Principal Consultant at Advanced Operational Performance Techniques, aka ADOPT. And Pam's presentation is titled ITSM Adoption, the Ingredients of Success for Organizational Change. So again, in this webinar, Pam is going to discuss how service management is performed by people supported by processes and technology. And while we can use the ITIL framework for the processes, and we can use various IT service management tools as the technology, we still need to support people as they adapt to the changes required for success. And why is that so difficult? And why doesn't everyone just follow the process? That question's been asked a lot. And in this presentation, we'll examine organizational change as it relates to IT service management. So please join us as we talk about simple ingredients for improving acceptance and reducing your frustration. And I would like to introduce Lisa Schwartz, who is our COO and co-founder of ITSM Academy. Lisa?
Hi, guys. Actually, during the what we'll call vocal blip of Donna's, I really talked about what I wanted to talk about, just that we have fantastic on-site webinars that are specific to service desk and customer service skills, and we've got public class offerings, and we've kind of already talked about those in the early birds. So let's get right to the Q&A, please.
Okay, we're ready. So there's a good discussion was going on here, Donna, that was around the self-service and self-help. And it started with Moy, who was asking, what is the difference between self-service and self-help?
Well, self-service would be obtaining services from your service catalog. So I want to download some authorized software package, maybe Adobe Reader or something. So it's self-service is more oriented to the request fulfillment process. I'm getting something new, some new service from the catalog that I don't have before, and I'm able to do that on my own. Now, self-help tends to be more that reactive, resolving some type of an incident. So I have some type of an error code, and I want to look that up in a knowledge base. Self-help, and people vacillate on where this falls, but something like resetting my password and being able to do that automatically. To me is a form of self-help. So to me it speaks to what process are we in? Are we in request fulfillment and we're requesting new services, or are we in incident management and we're dealing with, I need help doing something that I should be able to do but I can't. So you're going to decide in your organization where you fall with that. In some organizations, they maybe don't split those hairs. At the end of the day, it's really going to come down to what kind of reporting that you want to do, and so you'll decide for your own organization. But generally speaking, that's how they fall.
Well, and then Adam came in, and Adam asked, with the self-service solution, what is the real willingness or the level of trust by customers to use it versus calling the service desk by phone expecting to talk to someone live?
Well, again, I think to some extent it's dependent upon your technology and how easy your technology is to use, how good a job you've done marketing the availability of that technology, and it's a little bit generational. I have to tell you, the younger someone is, the more apt they're going to be willing to try it on their own. That's going to be what they'll try first, as opposed to getting on the phone and contacting someone. So there's a lot of factors that influence customer willingness, but you got to know that it's where we're heading. It is in fact the future, if it's not already there in your organization.
Right. And Adam's also
And
asking, and maybe giving.
The other, if I can just make one other point with self-service, the other thing is it extends the hours of your service desk. You know, for a lot of organizations, they don't necessarily have the capability to provide 24/7 support. But for basic services, like resetting your password is probably a really obvious example, I should be able to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning if I am up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it just extends your capability, and so it requires you within your organizations having a really down and dirty discussion about what is in fact a standard service, and then once you have that conversation, how then do we enable people to access those standard services technologically? Sorry, Karen, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that was great. I appreciate that, Donna, actually. That was good information to add to that end of that conversation. And then Adam is also asking, and maybe you've got a little advice for him on this. So how will self-help portals distinguish between an incident or a request ticket?
Well,
any thoughts on that?
Well, typically with self-service, it's more menu-oriented, and it's tied to your service catalog in some way, shape, or form. So you do want that capability, because you want to be able to then track who has requested what service or who has installed what service. You know, there's linkages here to service asset and configuration management so that we know what people are using along the way. Whereas with self-help, typically you're looking at, you know, some type of a knowledge base and being able to search on some type of an error message or some type of a symptom that someone's experiencing. And admittedly, that area is a little more difficult to report on and track, but the technology is getting better and better to be able to track what people are doing when they come into self-help. And in fact, very much where we are heading, I talked about that notion of seamless integration. Very much where we are heading is where I come into a knowledge, you know, I go online, I Google something, I try to solve it on my own, and if I can't, I click on the chat button, and the person who comes on and is chatting with me already knows what I've done. They see, you know, the searches that I've performed in the knowledge management system, they understand the steps that I've already taken, and they can now kind of pick up where I left off trying to help myself. So that, you know, that lends itself more to that, again, self-help being, you know, addressing some type of an error or answering some type of a question, as opposed to that tie into my service catalog, which is almost always more menu-driven.
Okay, thank you. Elias has a couple of questions, and I'm going to give you both of them, Donna, because I think they kind of just, you can answer them together. He said, could we have a few minutes clarifying about personalized IT service mainly managed by the service desk? And how do we measure and express in number the value that the service desk delivers to the business?
So the first thing you have to do is understand what the business is doing, right? So if you're providing personalized services, you're facilitating, you're part of the process of facilitating some outcome, and you have to understand what that outcome is. So if it's processing loans, or if it's, you know, maybe it's someone who's on the call center that's talking to the external customers of your company, and they're being measured based on their ability to handle calls within a time frame. So you first of all have to understand what the business outcome is, and then you have to look at the different ways in which you enable that. And again, today I think we're going to start with speaking to how we've minimized impact. That's where all the mean time to type metrics come into play, because they let us speak to the fact that we're continuously reducing the impact that people have on a day-to-day basis by tracking those mean time metrics. But more and more, we're going to start to get better at speaking to the fact that, you know, someone in a particular business unit wasn't aware that a particular technology was available. We introduced them to that technology, provided them some ad hoc training, and we helped them increase the number of loans that they were able to process by X%, right? So it begins with understanding the business outcome and then getting better at tracking how we contributed to improving that business outcome. And I understand that it's hard. It's easier said than done. Sometimes the business can't even necessarily tell you, what the business outcomes are. But more and more and more, we have to get better at doing that.
Good, great information. Thank you so much, Donna, for that. And I'm getting more great presentation, Donna, very helpful, great tips for us. And Leanne had a comment. She said she would maintain that everything is a request, just that some requests are to fix something that's broken, then it becomes an incident.
And again, if that works for your organization, but I think the thing that I would say, and I get in the spirit of it's a request for service, right? In that using those broad words, request for service, I understand that. But from a reporting standpoint, it really makes a difference. There's a very big difference between reporting on incidents that impacted existing services and impacted productivity for existing services and being able to say we provided these new services. You do want to be able to distinguish from a reporting standpoint. So if you can, if you're using this broad term request for service, but you're able to report at the end of the day on which of those requests were in fact I want something new and which of those in fact were something was wrong and needed to be addressed, then that's okay, right? That's your terminology, and as long as it makes sense to everybody in your organization. The sense of urgency is often a little bit different too, right? There's often different lead times with the time frame within which it takes you to handle incidents, especially when we start looking at things like what is the priority of incidents. The time frame is going to be different than the time frame or the lead time associated with handling requests, true requests, service requests for new things from our service catalog. So, if you have the ability to manage those time frames and report on things appropriately, then that's great.
Great, thank you, Donna. That's actually all the questions that I have for today. If anybody has any last questions, if you want to just chat them in now, that would be great. And if not, you can see from the slide that Donna has up that we will be at Fusion 2013. So if you're going to be there, we certainly look forward to seeing you. And I know most of you have requested pre-registration for the next webinar, so you will receive a confirmation by email. And for those of you that haven't requested pre-registration, we will send you an invitation and invite you to our next webinar.